This is Viterbi Voices, your chance to hear stories about research, classes, student life, and more.
Directly from our students, faculty, and other members of our engineering community. All right here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
Welcome back into Viterbi Voices. As usual, I am one of your hosts. My name is Paul Ledesma, Director of Undergraduate Admission at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
My name is Audrey Roberts. I'm a senior studying mechanical engineering here at USC.
And joining us is a new guest to the podcast. Introduce yourself, mystery guest.
Hello. My name is Derek Jones. I'm a junior studying ISE. And yeah, super excited to be here.
ISE being Industrial and Systems Engineering. And where are you from?
You are correct. I'm from Los Gatos, California.
Los Gatos, California. And you bring to I can't believe this is your first time on the podcast, right?
It is indeed.
Wow. I'm sorry?
Very exciting stuff, I said.
How does it feel? Do you feel just like it's different now? Your world's changing. Now you're on the podcast.
Oh, I think my worldview has changed forever as a consequence of this right now. Yeah.
So you bring to us a new bonus episode, and this was one of our recent live chats. You want to tell people what this episode's all about?
Yeah, so last Sunday, I hosted the live chat for LGBTQ plus students in engineering. It was a really important conversations that we had, and I was super happy to, I guess, be the moderator for a lot of really important questions that prospective students have. So
this is great. So we had a number of students, prospective students, join for this event. I'm really, really happy we had it. I'm really happy to put this audio back onto the podcast so more people can listen to it. And so we will get out of the way here and let Derek take it over as the host of our recent LGBTQ plus students in engineering live chat.
All right, if you're just joining, we're getting ready to start the LGBTQ plus students in engineering panel. So first things first, welcome everyone. All right, so shown here is our agenda for the next hour, everyone. This panel of current students will kick it off by introducing themselves. Then they will be answering questions that you submit on the webinar Q&A feature, which you should be able to see right now at the bottom of your screen. The theme for today is LGBTQ plus students in engineering, as I've said. And we're here to talk primarily about our experiences being queer in Viterbi, as well as at USC overall. Since we're just students, we're here to share the student perspective of Viterbi and cannot answer the majority of admission-related questions. So please direct those to our admission staff at viterbi.admission@usc.edu. If you're viewing this live chat from YouTube or viewing the live chat recording at a later date, don't worry. You can still email us questions at vstudent@usc.edu. We may not get to emailed questions during this session, but one of us will follow up with a response. So hold off on submitting questions through the Q&A for now, and we'll start taking your questions soon. At the end of this session, we'll spend a few minutes going over how to get in touch with the Viterbi admission office and stay in touch with us. All right, so without further ado, I'll introduce myself. My name is Derek. I'm a gay man with pronouns he, him, his, and I'll be hosting today's live chat and relaying your questions to the panel. To tell you a bit more about me, I'm a junior from Los Gatos, California, studying industrial and systems engineering with a focus in information systems. And next year, I'll be starting the progressive degree program for a master's in analytics. And now for our panelists.
Hi everyone, my name is Ayana Warsolome. I am a sophomore studying electrical computer engineering. I use she, her pronouns. By the way, happy coming out day to everybody. I also have a minor in themed entertainment, and I'm from IAEA, Hawaii. I have a lot of involvements across campus, such as Queers in Engineering, Sciences, and Technology, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, and the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers.
Hi, my name is Nick. I use he, him pronouns. I am a junior from Alamo, California, up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm studying mechanical engineering with a minor in disruptive innovation from our IAB and Young Academy. On campus, I am a student ambassador for the USC Admissions Center, better known as a tour guide, and I'm also part of the USC Club Rock Climbing team. And this upcoming semester, I'll be starting my progressive degree in engineering management and mechanical engineering.
I am from Southlake, Texas, and I'm a junior studying biomedical engineering. With a cellular molecular emphasis, I'm also on the pre-medical track. A couple of my involvements across campus include first year advocacy board that was only in first year, queers in engineering, science, and technology, queer people of color, queer and ally students assembly, Trojan Health volunteers, and joint educational project.
Hi, my name is Nick. My pronouns are he and him. I'm a junior studying chemical engineering with a sustainable energy emphasis, and I am from New York. Some things I'm involved in campus are also careers in engineering, science, and technology, the American Institute of Chemical Engineers. I'm a virtual peer mentor, which is essentially a virtual resident assistant, and I have a work study position in the Viterbi marketing division.
And next, these are our moderators who will be behind the scenes responding to questions submitted during the Q&A that don't get answered on screen. So let's meet them.
Hi everyone, my name is Luce, pronouns she, hers. I'm a senior studying computer engineering and computer science from Bell Gardens, California.
Hi everyone, my name is Paul. I'm a junior studying computer engineering and computer science from El Paso, Texas, and my pronouns are he, him.
All right, now it's time to start submitting your questions. If you're on the webinar, we encourage you to submit them through the Q&A feature below. And if you're viewing this from YouTube, you can email us your questions to vstudent@usc.edu for answers at a later date. We want you all to know that a few years ago, we were all in the same exact position you're in now, applying to colleges and trying to decide which college will be a positive environment for us. So that's why we're here to answer your questions and speak about our honest experiences. We can talk about our journeys from high school to college, our experiences as members of the LGBTQ+ community in Viterbi, or just about anything else you might be interested in. So let's get those questions going. In the meantime, once again, I meant to say this before, happy National Coming Out Day. Just wanted to remind you all that whether or not you're out yet or even completely sure of your identity, just know that you are loved and accepted. All right, let's take a look. I actually have a few pre-written questions from a survey that we sent out. So let's just start with those. So have you felt comfortable sharing your identity at USC? And could you talk about your experience being queer in Viterbi?
I can go ahead and start on that. In high school, I was not out, just didn't feel right at my high school, but coming down to USC, it felt very accepting. And the things I was involved with at the time, being specifically the admission center at that point, I was a very accepting and diverse community. So I ended up being very openly out when I've been down here. And I definitely do not regret that decision. I think it helped me be very comfortable with my identity and my sexuality, and it ended up making me become a more well-rounded student, as well as a worker for both Viterbi student ambassadors and the admission center alike.
Thanks, Nick. Anyone else want to hop in?
I mean, I definitely feel very welcome. I always feel like I want to kind of push them and say, hey, we're going to be comfortable with this. I'm not going to wait for someone to try to ask me who I am. I'll straight up say my pronouns, and then if they're confused by that, I'll be happy to explain it, but I'm not gonna, wait for them. I'm going with the assumption that everyone is accepting, because shouldn't everyone be?
I love it. I love that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think even as somebody who was out in high school coming to USC, like I didn't have, like, it's not like I had low expectations. I had high expectations for USC to be a super accepting place. I mean, it's college in LA. But honestly, it's very easy to talk about your identity with people here and be very frank with other people about how you feel. I've rarely been in a spot where I have to dance around other people's feelings.
Absolutely. And if you are in that spot, you're not in the right spot. That's how I feel. Okay, let's move on to a new question. What kinds of support exist for queer students in Viterbi and at USC overall? So that could be student orgs or anything else.
Is this when we plug QuEST?
Yes, this is when we plug QuEST. So QuEST stands for Queers in Engineering, Science, and Technology. Maddie and I are the co-presidents of QuEST. And that's an organization for queer people in STEM in general. But a lot of that population is Viterbi students. And it's a space where you can come to find a community. So we have weekly meetings, which consist of both social events where you can get to know your fellow queer engineers, as well as professional development events where we can help you kind of get a leg up on finding your potential career and or further academic pursuits, knowing that there are some institutional barriers to queer people. We try to help overcome that. And in general, we provide a place for support. So as a community, the other people in QuEST are always open to talk to you about any issues you may have concerning your identity, and we are open and accepting to everybody. Maddie, do you have anything to add to that?
QuEST, you laid it out pretty well. I think I also want to add that we have conference opportunities. We are a chapter of the national organization called OSTEM. So we have a national conference that we attend every year, and that's always super fun. It's a great place to meet other queer engineers because even at the USC campus, like we are a very small kind of bubble community. So it's very nice to go out and see that, oh, there are so many of us across the nation that like identify with the label queer, if you will. I can also speak a little bit on in terms of like support that QUASA and the LGBTRC. So QUASA is the Queer and Ally Student Association, and the LGBTRC is the LGBTQ plus Resource Center. So QUASA is kind of an umbrella organization for all queer students on campus. So QuEST is a part of QUASA. Queer People of Color is another organization that I'm involved with through QUASA. And QUASA is just a place that supports all queer people on campus, whether you be a person of color, an engineer, business major, film major, anything like that. I think we also have a transgender advocacy group as well as the first year advocacy board. So those are a couple of examples of organizations and support groups and communities that you're able to find here on campus. In terms of the LGBTRC, they also have different programs like QTPOC, which is different from QPOC. So QPOC is Queer People of Color. QTPOC is run by the different center, but it's queer and trans people of color. So there are different programs run by each of these different sectors, and it's overall just a very welcoming and supportive community. Plenty of resources out there.
That's great. Thank you all. So I actually have a follow-up question coming in live. Someone asked in the chat, while I'm assuming none of you are transfer students, do any of you have any knowledge on how easy it is to integrate into USC life and LGBTQ plus clubs?
So speaking for QuEST specifically, there's no application process or expectations that you have to meet in order to become a member of QuEST. Like you can just show up to our events and the community is there if you wanted to. There's absolutely no bias against transfer students or grad students or any other category of students. It's if you want to find that community, all you have to do is come look. And there's plenty of ways for you to integrate yourself into that club atmosphere. A cool way is our mentor-mentee program, which is how I met Ayana because she was my mentee last year in that.
She's the best mentor, honestly.
But she's an amazing mentee, and so that kind of program is designed to help people who are in their first year at USC and are struggling to make their way into that kind of community. And so we understand that it's difficult to be a transfer student, and those things are in place for you to help you out.
Awesome. So before we get too much deeper, we have a couple more broad questions that I think would be good to go into. So one says, what is the LGBTQIA plus community at Viterbi like? And another one, on a similar note, what is it like being LGBTQ plus in STEM?
So the LGBTQ plus community in Viterbi and in STEM, I think at Viterbi for me, like I'm going back to QuEST on this one. I find most of my queer engineers through QuEST and queer STEM people through QuEST, and it's a really great community, and it's just very welcoming, and everyone's very much supportive of each other because not only do we know what it feels like to be queer and like to have that experience, but we also know what it feels like to be suffering through engineering and to have that shared experience as well. So like if we're all in the same Calc 3 class, we can all complain about being queer and Calc 3, right? So it's a very like fun and just supportive environment where it's just like a good place to have support. Second part of the question, being queer in STEM. For me, it's just it's just two parts of my identity that I can't happen to control. And if someone doesn't like it, then it's like, well, what can I really do about that other than just maybe not be your friend anymore, you know? So that's my whole take on it, is like, it's two parts of my identity. Yes, they intersect. Yes, we have like issues that are very specific to this intersection of identities, but also I'm not going to let that hold me back. And it's just who I am, and I can't really control that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I fully agree.
Yeah, I can add on to that and say like the benefit of having a space where a community where everyone has those underlying struggles with you is that you can kind of let your guard down. You know you're coming into this community space with an expectation that you're not going to have to explain your identity to other people. Not that like Viterbi certainly isn't a harsh place for you to express your identity, but not everybody outside of queer spaces is going to immediately understand. But when you're in a queer space, everyone has that instant understanding. So that first level of walls are broken down, and it's very easy to just make friends. And at the end of the day, it feels like everyone has the same sense of humor. We have a QuEST Discord where we just send memes all the time, and it's like this specific community will only get this specific memes, combination of like STEM memes and queer memes, and it's just great. So having those people, that shared identity, is really integral to this community, but it just makes it so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to say really quickly, adding on to like Viterbi as a whole, I think part of the beauty of Viterbi and also going to school in LA is even when you're not directly involved with like the LGBTQ plus community within engineering, just like the general engineering community as a whole, I personally have not had many negative experiences with people about my identity, which is really nice because it's kind of an expectation. Also, the people that gather at USC are generally very inclusive and open-minded people. So I've felt that I can just be myself in these kind of spheres and not have to overtly explain myself or feel at a disadvantage or feel separated from other students, because it's just something internal to me. It doesn't affect who I am as a student or as a person.
Right, I guess going off, echoing what Nick said, Nick N said about letting your guard down, it is tricky because being a queer person in engineering, that's like one more thing that someone could be mad at you for, something that they could use against you. So it really meant a lot to come here and have all the support and have this understood inherent energy that I would be accepted and supported.
Definitely. Yeah, I've personally, like from my own experience, I've never felt discriminated against or treated any differently for my identity or anything. And that's something that I'll always be grateful for. So another question, if we want to dive a little further back in our histories, did you have any worries or concerns before coming to college regarding all this? And how were those affirmed or subverted or anything?
One of my biggest experiences when I first came, since I wasn't out at home, I wasn't out to my parents, so I was just excited to come to Los Angeles and be out and bisexual. I came out to my suite mates, so I was in a suite of 8 people, and so I came out to them and I was all nervous because I didn't know how to come out to people. And they were yeah, of course, yeah, totally, that's fine. And then my RA on my floor is also queer, and so it was just amazing not only to be met with that kind of agreeing, like, yeah, no, it's fine, you're valid, but to have someone so close to me in the position literally to support me as a resident that was understanding my situation.
Does anyone else have anything to add?
I mean, I would echo some of that, where like not being out in high school and coming to college. I think part of me wanted to be more open with myself, because I was like, I'm kind of sick and tired of like having to act differently than I would want to, or having to like suppress part of who I am. So I was like pretty quick to come out to my suite mates. And at that point, I was like a really awkward person, but again, being met with such great reception, like again, made me throughout like the months of my freshman year become more of like who I actually was and kind of get more in tune with like my personality and stuff. And I think I'm more fun than I was freshman year. At least I hope I was.
Yeah, no, I was the same way. I wasn't out in high school, and I actually one of my closest friends from high school came to USC with me, and I hadn't come out to him, and he ended up being the first person I came out to at USC, like super late at night in my dorm, and he was like floored. But I remember just like the feeling of just like everything just poured out of me, and like it was the best feeling ever. And I was never like, I guess I was never worried about backlash, but it's just like when you hold something down for so long, it becomes like hard to let it go, you know? So, but then, yeah, USC has been great to me with everything. So let's take a look at the other questions. Oh yeah, I like this one. Did any of you include your identity as part of your college admissions essay or any part of your application? I was just curious about that one. That was kind of funny to me.
I definitely did. It was a really big experience for me. I'm not sure what question it was. Maybe some time you were met with people with different ideas than you. I'm not sure.
One of those. Yeah.
I used it a little bit to vent about my parents, but that's fine. But it did mean a lot to me that I was sharing such this intimate part of myself and such this big part, because I was trying to be so honest and authentic in my application, because I wanted to present to USC my full self, and then they accepted my full self, which is a great feeling.
Included the fact that I was queer in my applications, not through like an essay, but like I just sprinkled it in like a little fun fact in my resume. I was like, ooh, I was part of the GSA. That's a fun fact about me. But when I came to campus for an interview, I was in the interview sitting across the table from like 3 other people, and I was like, so how are the gays? That's not like exactly how I phrased it. It was like, how is the queer support on community, like how is the queer community and support at USC? But I was like, I was kind of like, if you're not going to accept me like as like a queer and gender nonconforming person, then I don't want to accept you as a college. And so that was just my whole thought process going into it. I kind of decided at some point that I wanted to come to California, and I was like, what is the point of coming to California if they're not going to accept me for who I am? And I was like, at this point, this is it. You take me or leave me. And they took me, so that was good.
Absolutely. I did not include that information in my application just because I don't know, I was still kind of dealing with it a little bit at the time. But worked out for all of us. So okay, let's go to a new question. So I like this one. It says, in our opinions, is USC a particularly gay school? Is there a large LGBTQ plus population?
So do you remember that scene in Love, Simon where he's like daydreaming about going to school in LA?
Literally, I was like, why is that a personal attack on me?
So it looks exactly like that. No, it doesn't. But like, there's like the queer community is large, and like you run into queer people in your normal life all the time, and the spaces of things like QuEST are pretty large, and all the events they do are really well attended. So there's plenty of people that are in the queer community for you to be a community with. If you're asking this question in terms of like the dating pool, I personally can't comment too much on that, but I'm guessing your chances would be pretty good.
I love it. Okay, so on to a little more serious of a note, I thought this was a really good question. Let me find it real quick. All right, so this says, engineering schools sometimes get a reputation for being a little more conservative and homophobic in nature. Have y'all experienced any sort of homophobia or transphobia that your counterparts in other degree programs at USC haven't?
I can't speak in terms of like blatant homophobia or transphobia that like other schools would not experience, but I like as a gender nonconforming person using they them pronouns, I get the experience, the fun experience of being misgendered almost daily. And that's just something I feel like is a little bit universal across majors, across schools, because people are just simply not used to addressing me by pronouns that are not what I appear to be or what they think I appear to be or whatever gender expression is. Um, so I've had issues in terms of like getting people to gender me correctly, but at some point I've stopped caring if people think I'm a polite person, and the minute they like use the wrong pronoun, I'm like they, that kind of thing. So it's a struggle, but we're getting there. In terms of homophobia, there's been nothing like blatant homophobia, more like kind of implicit heteronormativity. I was working in a lab in my old postdoc. We were having our good time doing our little experiment, and she was trying to make small talk, and she goes, "So, do you have a boyfriend?" And I go, "No." And then she goes, "Why?" And I go, "What do you mean why? I don't have time." And then she was like, "Oh, okay." And then and then she goes, "So wait, what do you want to do as your career?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm pre-medical, so like I want to go into like graduate school or medical school." And she was like, "Oh, makes sense now. You need to use all that time to study." And I was like, "Okay, we get each other. We're on the same wavelength." So that was like the closest thing that I've like experienced to maybe homophobia, which is like not even homophobia, just kind of like a funny story that I like to sprinkle in for a little bit of extra flavor. Um, but yeah, I have a new postdoc now, and she is very nice. And on our within the first 10 minutes of meeting her, she asked about my pronouns. So we love that. She said she would defend me, and I was like a true ally. So that's kind of my experiences.
Yeah. On a more optimistic note, I will say that like we'd be lying to you if we were saying every single person in Viterbi is an amazing person and knows how to handle talking about queer issues and is perfect at getting everyone's pronouns right. But some people are not good at that and have not really had the education to understand those issues. But that's something we're working on. Like Maddie and I are personally working with Viterbi staff to implement a diversity training for a lot of Viterbi student leaders. So hopefully the outcomes of that training is that to educate the student body more. So like I said, we'd be lying if we said Viterbi was a perfect place in terms of having absolutely zero homophobia and transphobia. But I will say that a lot of the people here are making a real effort to improve.
Yeah, I was just kind of gonna echo that and say like it's never anything, at least in my experience, it hasn't been anything that's like blatant or intentional. It's more or less like a level of naivete or not kind of having the right scope, just being a little bit not seeing the entire picture, the fact that there is like a very large queer student body within Viterbi. But I think that also kind of holds true for just the entirety of USC. It's not like specific in engineering. That's a pretty just blanket feeling where it's like, some people don't know how to handle like situations about like, for example, asking about pronouns or, like comments on heteronormativity. But there have been a lot of changes, at least since I've been here for a couple years now, where you can feel that there's like a push to kind of have more DEI training and have more inclusivity sprinkled into things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I really like this question. Do you ever notice that queer people in Viterbi have a different way of thinking than non-queer people, especially when integrating the humanities into engineering?
What a thoughtful, insightful question. Oh, sorry, Nick, are you talking?
No.
I'm like just thinking kind of. I mean, from a personal experience, my roommate and one of my best friends is straight male in mechanical engineering. So we study a lot together because we're in pretty much all the same classes. And when it comes to studying or how we see things, I'd honestly say it's pretty even or pretty similar between the two of us. And ironically, with respect to the humanities thing, I am not great with the humanities and he is like a philosophy minor. So it's actually like kind of flipped of what most people would, I guess, expect stereotypically, but it's just like a little bit of a switch up. So I think it kind of depends person to person.
Thinking about it, because I had the privilege of living with 2 other engineers in my freshman year, and I don't say that ironically, I genuinely loved every minute of living with them. But it gave rise to a lot of like opportunities to like compare like how we solve problems, like that kind of thing. And I think in terms of like queer students versus non-queer students, I feel like queer students are like they see like the human application of like these problems a little bit easier. For example, like if like a problem is asking me, oh, so there's like we have like 2 sample populations, like one is like the sample population of female and one is sample population of male. Like I instinctively always take that step back and I'm like, okay, so like we have a sample population of females and males and I am able to view it in terms of like, and I have like that, I don't know, the kind of disclaimer in my mind that these females and males, like their gender expression may be different. And some of these females, some of these males may be on like hormone replacement therapy. And like we may need to take that into account as well. So in terms of like taking these different aspects of like the queer identity and applying them to these problems and like understanding the real world applications, I feel like we are able to kind of bring in our perspective like as queer people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I want to echo that real quick. I don't know, I can't pinpoint exactly how it seeps into like academics, but I think one thing with all queer people is like we all have to go through some period in our lives of like introspection. And I think that brings us all just like a certain level of emotional intelligence that plenty of other people do have, but maybe not necessarily. And I think that definitely kind of opens our realms of thought a little more. I'm being super self-serving right now, but I don't care. I love queer people. So yeah, I mean, does anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah, the correct answer to this question is that all queer people are smarter than straight people. And
yeah,
please take that quote out of
You
context.
said it.
Thank you.
Okay, so next question. This is coming from the chat as well. Is being queer in STEM at USC cliquey or lonely?
I think when they say the word cliquey, do they mean can we find a community? Because I like the term community a lot better than clique. And
I feel like there's a better option between
Yeah.
cliquey and lonely. That is like there.
Yeah, it doesn't look like Mean Girls where like everyone sits at the same lunch
I
table.
think to speak on that, I feel like there are, like when I remember when I was first coming to USC and like I decided that I wanted to come to USC, we had like our little group me's and our little like chats before we met each other, and I felt like there were aspects of like parts of the queer community that were very cliquey and were very like closed off. Like there was a whole section of people who all came from the same geographic location and they all knew each other and they only talked to each other, and I was like, okay, so maybe I'm not going to hang out with them. And I think me and Nick might be a little bit biased, but I don't think Quest is cliquey at all. And I don't think that the queer community that I found at Quaza or through like queer people of color or even at first year advocacy board, I don't feel like any of those were very cliquey. Everyone was very like welcoming and supportive, and if you were showing up like on the first week, they offered the same welcome as to a person who would be showing up on the third or the fourth or the fifth weeks. So I feel like everyone who is looking for that community will be able to find that community, and everyone who was welcoming people into that community will be welcoming them with open arms because we all know how it feels to be lonely and to not have that around us.
Yeah, I will say that like in the beginning, when you first come to college is like scary, so it may seem kind of cliquey, and you may see people in friend groups and be like, oh, they're totally separate from everybody else. They're not going to want to talk to me. But like on some level, all that stuff really isn't real. And you can totally make friends with people who are already in other friend groups. I'm pretty sure that like when I first met Maddie, I thought they were too cool for me, and I thought they didn't want to be friends with me, but here we are. So it may look weird and may look a little bit clicky at the beginning, but it's really not going to be.
Love it. Okay, so on the topic of QuEST and other queer organizations, someone in the chat asked, can you join any of these groups even if you don't know exactly what you are or aren't comfortable coming out yet to family/general public?
Absolutely 100%. We have the little queer and ally student assembly there just for that reason. We're not going to turn you away if you say you're straight. We're not going to turn you away if you say you're questioning. We're not going to turn you away because honestly, we're just here to like have a good time. And as long as like even if you are straight and you're just chilling with us for a couple of months and when you're trying to figure it out, or if you're completely straight and you know you're straight, as long as you're respecting the space and the purpose that they're for, feel free to come and join us. Like we're fun people, at least I like to hope we're fun people. So yeah, even if you're questioning, if you haven't come out to family, all that, like feel free to join us. Like I know I had a different experience in terms of like being pretty solid on my sexuality in high school, but like throughout my like 3 years at USC, I still am trying to figure out like what is gender, who are they, and I still haven't quite figured it out, and I'm thriving. So that is a good like everyone is just a welcoming space for all.
That goes for like any diversity org at USC. There is no point, like Maddie said, like you're not going to get turned away. Like there is no point to be turned away on. Like you just go attend meetings and go to events, and the community is there. There's no like filter that you have to go through to be a member of any of these clubs. It's way more chill than that. And specifically for QuEST, like QuEST seems like a really small definition, like it's only queer people in STEM. Like you can join QuEST if you're any major. You can join it if you're like an English major or anything. There are no benefits to. There is no like rules that you have to fit in to join a diversity club at USC.
All right, thanks y'all. So here's another question, and I have a fairly strong opinion about this, but someone asked, do you feel you've missed out on any parts of the college experience at Viterbi because of your identity? I can open with what I think. I mean, I'm just going to say, I think the whole concept of a college experience is kind of an entire construct of like what everyone kind of expects you to experience. And it's extremely heteronormative and any other types of normative you can throw on there. So I would say, no, I haven't. I've enjoyed my college life. I haven't missed out on anything.
I mean, yeah, 100%. I did the things and I'm involved in the organizations that I'm involved in because I wanted to be involved in them. And the things that I might have thought originally I wanted to do, for example, Greek life, I didn't not do it because I was worried about like not fitting in or anything like that. It was just a matter of like, I didn't have time. And so for me, like time management has been more of a factor than my identity in any form of choosing what I wanted to do in college. So I'd say personally, I definitely love what I'm doing and feel like I'm getting the most out of my experience here.
Definitely. Okay, let's move on to a new question. Okay, so I would like everyone to answer this one. What is the best piece of advice you can give to prospective students who want to study engineering, and implicitly prospective queer students, I guess?
Best piece of advice is like don't spend all of your time studying. Like you hear all these horror stories about like how coming into engineering is like you're going to be studying all the time, you're not going to have any friends, you're not going to have time to shower, that kind of thing. One, that's gross. Go shower, take care of yourself, drink water, eat food. um yes, you have plenty of time for that. But like two, like if you spend all of your time studying, like it's not going to be a very good experience. It's not like that college experience, like it's not all about studying. Like you can definitely be a part of like these orgs. You can go out and do your community service. You can minor, you can double minor, you can pick up like a pre-law, pre-med, pre-grad track. You can do all of these things. I'm not sure if Viterbi is still pushing this, but when I was applying, they were pushing Engineering Plus super hard, where they said, you are an engineer, but you are much more than that. Like, you are not just going to be confined to your classroom or confined to your lab or confined to your job search. Like, there is so much more out there for you. And like, if there is something that you are interested in, like, go out and find it and do it. Like, it is perfectly possible to be academically successful and like extracurricularly happy at the same time. So like, don't think that you have to trap yourself in your room and study for like 24 hours at like 24/7. So yeah, it's a hard time, but it's also a fun time. So that's my piece of advice.
My go-to advice is always that your calendar is your best friend. Have multiple calendars, color code them. But I guess more specific to today's talk, I was thinking about the concept of just like being firm in who you are and never apologizing for that. And I guess obviously that means I'm not going to apologize for whatever my identity is, but it's also I'm not going to try to be something I'm not. So wrapping it back to the calendar, if you're the type of person who knows that they are very social and extroverted, you can block out those times. Put your social hangouts in your calendar. That's so valid. And then you put your studying in your calendar, and look, you're on it. So in conclusion, you are you for a reason, and you are here to thrive.
I 100% agree. That's definitely a lesson I learned in college. In fact, I think I specifically remember giving you that advice last year. That made me cry a little bit. But my number one piece of advice for freshmen is go to things. Like, there are so many opportunities available for you as freshmen, and you don't lose anything by just going to something. Like, show up at a random club meeting that you are somewhat interested in. Show up at, go to a panel that may seem interesting. You never know what you're going to learn, who you're going to meet, what kind of community you'll find. This is obviously very applicable for queer communities on campus. Just go to things and you'll meet cool people. And college, the thing that's so amazing about college is that there's people from all around the world, people, all different kinds of people, and you may find your best friends, and you may find people you hate, but you could just leave if you don't like them. So just do things. Don't sit around regretting not doing things. Just do them.
On a quick pivot, because I was going to say go to things for mine. My biggest piece of advice that's just general is be prepared to be wrong about the things you're studying. I think that it specifically applies to engineering, because we hear like, oh, science, math, physics, I'm good at those things, let me apply. And for me, that was a really positive experience, because it turned out mechanical engineering was so much more than I thought it was, and how many different applications it could have. So I see a lot more possible career opportunities opening for myself in the future that I'm interested in that I never would have linked to mechanical engineering. But on the other side of things, if you get into that intro class and realize this is the last thing I want to be doing with my life, don't stick around in it if you're wrong. Don't try to prove a point to yourself or anyone. Just switch majors. At least at Viterbi and at USC in general, it's really, really common and really easy to switch your major, because 17 and 18-year-olds might not have a handle on what they want to do till they're 65. So yeah, just be ready to be wrong about it, and be open to the fact that you might be wrong about what you're studying.
All right. Thanks, guys. Those were great answers. So we got a couple more good questions. This one was really eloquent. And for those of us who are not male identifying, this person said, engineering is known to be a male dominated field, and being a queer female might make it seem even more isolated and divided. Do you feel somewhat isolated / divided from your male or straight classmates?
Yes. I mean, obviously, I don't want to, like, one of the biggest things I liked when I came to USC is, small story, small tangent. I did a summer program, and it was for Viterbi, and it was all engineers. And so while we were moving in for the summer program, I saw a lot of people like in the elevator, and I'd be like, wow, they don't look like an engineer. And I would be like, excuse you? What does an engineer look like? So I love that there's so many different things that an engineer can look like, but there is also this still innate, I guess, like imposter syndrome, that if I'm not exactly like those male classmates who have been coding forever and have the sickest desktops set up. See, I just feel, I would feel that I don't belong, right? Imposter syndrome. But that's really never gonna be my main focus, because if I just turn up like 15 degrees, there's another person that looks like me, or another person who identifies like me, and another person who feels like me. So I always feel like I have that community.
We reached, I think, I know, actually, no, I know. Viterbi reached gender parity this year. So we are like a class of like 50% like people who identify or who are assigned female at birth, and 50% people who are assigned male at birth. Um, so that's pretty cool. I personally do, I personally do not really find my community amongst the straight men in my classes. Um, that's just kind of the people who I choose to hang out with, and it never really like it doesn't affect my work. If I'm put into a group project with them, everyone is super respectful, everyone is super friendly. We all get along well, we get our work done. Like there is no like discrimination or like even implicit, like everyone's super like conscientious of where they stand and like what kind of privilege they hold. So it's not like I don't feel like I fit in, because there is a community there, but it's also like it's okay to not be part of that community. And I wouldn't say it's isolated. I would just say I'm just part of a different side of it. Because I'm also a BME, and BMEs, we have a lot of like, we have like our class is actually over half of us are assigned female at birth, I believe. So we have a lot of women and femme people in our classes. So it's never really been an issue for me. All of my study groups, like we all have, it's a mix, you know? There's no really isolating factor. There's no real like sense of, oh, this is only the cool guys club, like only cool straight guys can be in this club. No, it's like we all have to work together. If we all want to succeed, we all have to work together, and that's kind of where we all go, you know?
Yeah, no, thank you too for answering that. I just thought it was really important that we address those issues, and your answers really resonated with me, even as a male. Okay, so I think we're going to move into our final question for the night, and it's one that I'm sure you've had to answer before, and it's just why USC?
So it looks more meaningful when I throw up peace signs all the time.
Wow, wait, I want to start saying that. That's hilarious.
But yes, on a serious note, USC was my dream school. I did not think I was going to get in. And it was a little bit like how Nick was talking about in Love, Simon. He was daydreaming about going to Los Angeles and going to college and finally being out. It was, I guess, this not only just being the cultural hub of being Los Angeles, but also, of course, the resources of the engineering school. But I also knew that I was very interested in theater and entertainment, which is my minor. And so USC, what I knew it as was engineering and school of cinematic arts. And I was like, perfect. That's both. That's amazing. How is that possible? So it was really just so oddly satisfying how it checked all my boxes, and then they let me in.
I like when I first came to USC, this is kind of like a fun story. When I first visited USC, I had the absolute worst time. I was like having the worst allergies. I had a migraine. They were walking me through that tour, and I was like, the sun is too bright. I don't want to see. I want to go home. And my parents were like, no, it's okay. Like, we can make it through just another hour. And I was like, another hour? I am never coming back to this school ever again. But I'm here now. So what kind of like, what kind of changed it for me is like, I was choosing my last two choices between my schools were UCLA and USC, actually. And I was like, bothering everyone I could think of about it. I was like, which one do you think I should choose? And they were like, it's not my decision, it's your decision. And I was like, well, I can't make decisions, so please help me. And they were like, well, it's your decision, I can't help you, I'm sorry. And I was like, okay, so I'll just go and like visit these schools. And I'd already visited USC once, I'd already visited UCLA once, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll go back to like migraine school again. But then I came back for Explore SC, and it was a completely different experience, because when you come to visit when you're not admitted, or like when you're still a prospective student, they give you like the general tour, they walk you through the school, and they give you like a general overview. But with Explore SC, I was able to like meet with like actual Viterbi students and like talk to them about the community, and talk to them about like the projects they were working on, the classes they were taking, the things they liked and the things they didn't like. And like fun fact, like I still see my Explore host like around all the time. Like we're in the same classes, like she's in the lab that's right next to my lab. Like I still see her all the time. Like we still say hi to each other on occasion. Super great. So it was really that like that kind of cliche thing that people tell you when you're still trying to decide. They're like, when you go, you'll know. Like when you get there and you feel like you belong somewhere, you'll know. And I felt that at USC, and when I went to UCLA, I was like, you have a really great hill, but that's all I know about you. Like that's all I know. I was like, I love you for your hill, and I've heard that your food is pretty good. So it's like USC with like the engineering program that I want to be in, the labs, the resources, the network, the academics, like versus UCLA with the hill and the food. And I was like, okay, so which one am I going to choose? And even when I had it like narrowed down to there, I was still agonizing over it for weeks. I was like, but the hill though.
I did the same thing.
I was like, the hill is so nice. But ultimately I was like, USC, like it has so many opportunities, and I don't regret it. Like I am in a lab that I love. I'm like with people that I and a community that I also love, and that's why I chose it, and that's why I stay.
So I also had a bad time the first time I visited USC. I got locked in one of the stairwells in one of the freshman dorms, and like I didn't know how to get out, and that was a slightly traumatizing experience. But I feel like the bad experience makes you like think about what really matters at the school instead of the time you had there. I'm not going to go specifically into why USC, but more about why Viterbi, because I actually ended up entering USC as a business student. So when I applied to colleges, I had applied to all business schools, and I came into Marshall. But one of the things that I was deciding on when I was choosing schools was because I knew I was interested in engineering and might want to switch, like what does the process look like to switch? And USC was the only school that I applied to that like had a really detailed outline of like what exactly the process was to switch, and what exactly grades you needed to get in, and what classes you needed to take. And that was really refreshing, because I had heard a lot of just like confusing answers from other schools. So that was a big reason why I switched. But then my freshman year when I came in, I was still taking all business classes, and I wasn't really getting the engineering experience. So what ultimately convinced me to switch to Viterbi was just going to student clubs. So going to clubs like QuEST and AICHE, which is the American Institute of Chemical Engineers. The people there were super nice, and I was able to just get a sense of the community before I even touched the chemistry classes. So everyone at Viterbi is super accepting, and they're super just understanding of what it's like, whatever circumstances you have. So I just fell in love with community instantly, and that's what ultimately sealed the deal for me switching to Viterbi.
Yeah, just to the quick why USC for me was really, it came down to opportunity, where I was looking at different schools and they're like, yeah, you're going to be an engineer and you're going to be a really good one, and that's what you're dedicating your time to. Whereas with USC, it was that engineering plus idea where you're engineering, but you can also do all these other things. And I remember in my orientation advising appointment, even though it's like 10 minutes, I just brought up really quickly, I'm like, I want to do like a progressive degree, that kind of accelerated master's program. I want to study abroad and I want to take a minor. Can I do that? And I was expecting to get like 2 of the 3 back. And the advisor just blatantly said like, yes, and here's how your course plan will look. So that was like really surprising. I didn't think I would have that much space. And it ended up, again, giving me that full college experience that I had thought I wanted, and ended up still to this day really enjoying. But I also like to think of this question as like why I stayed at USC, because I did have a little bit of that sophomore slump first semester sophomore year, and it was really tough. My classes just kind of all stacked up on each other to the point where I was constantly stressed and really questioning, like, is engineering right and is USC right for me? And it ended up coming down to the idea of community and all of the opportunities I've had, and thinking back to how much I've grown in certain situations. And like, if I have anything good or bad happen, it wasn't my friends from home that I was talking to and reaching out to. It was the people I met at USC and the people I thought were really close to me. And in that entire process of kind of having that questioning, it was my friends who were dropping everything to make sure like I was still hanging in there and that I was going to finish through, because they knew that this is something that I've wanted. And having that experience and seeing how openly and readily people were there for me, even when I was having a little bit of an existential crisis, just kind of sealed it a second time over for me that like, yeah, USC is the right place and it's where I'm going to grow the most.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. I'll go real quick with my answer. I'll just plus one everything you guys said. For me, USC was just the perfect intersection of community, location, flexibility in my coursework, professional connections, what have you. Pretty much anything I could list. It kind of met the bar or exceeded it. So that's where I am now. So that was our last question. I'm sorry for any questions that might be remaining. If you have any more questions, you can always email us at vstudent@usc.edu. We hope you enjoyed the live chat tonight and gained some insight on what being queer in Viterbi is like and just what Viterbi is like in general. And now we can plug all these other queer orgs. If you guys want to do this, just feel free. Just give a little synopsis of each one.
I'm sure I can take it. So we've been talking about QuEST all night. Follow us on Instagram at USC QuEST. QuASA, once again, is the umbrella organization for all LGBT students at USC. QPOC is queer people of color. I can't see what's at the bottom because of Zoom. I don't know what Rainbow Scholars is. Somebody else has to take that. Generation Queer is a queer leadership organization where you, it's like a couple month long leadership program where you meet about once a week and learn leadership skills, specifically pertaining to the queer community. That's something I did as a freshman and thought was very cool. And please just follow all these things on Instagram, because that's how you keep updated with it.
Absolutely. Can't recommend that enough. And just know, regardless of your identity, you have all these resources at your hand. So thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. It's been a lot of fun. Good luck on your college applications. Stay safe. And as always, fight on.
And we're back. Thanks for hosting that live chat, Derek.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. I had a great time.
So Derek, you talked about how important this type of topic is, and I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, this idea of letting students know first about our community of students here, and how students can find that welcoming environment, but also understanding that there's other students that have gone through similar struggles. What do you think was the most important part of this live chat that students just listened to?
I think probably the most important part was being a high schooler or just like a younger member of the LGBTQ plus community. You don't exactly have tons of people to look to as role models or just any example at all. So I think having kind of a widespread, I guess, broadcast of that, and like where these students might be able to see themselves just a few years into the future is really valuable.
Absolutely. And what was probably the most, unexpected point of the conversation for you? What was something that you weren't expecting to get into, but ultimately started talking about?
I would say the question that stood out to me the most, just a few days later that I'm remembering, is one student asked, has being LGBTQ plus affected kind of your college experience, or allowed you or not allowed you to have a college experience? And I think shaking away from kind of a uniform, like ubiquitous concept of the college experience is a really important thing to do. As an engineer, as a LGBTQ plus member, as anyone, I think it can be maybe harmful, maybe it's just not ideal to kind of place expectations on things like that. So I really enjoyed like kind of being able to kind of shake that normativity from people.
I think that students, regardless of their background, are always trying to find the solution of, tell me what my life's going to be like. And that could be sometimes related to identity. Sometimes we find students ask that question related to an academic major. Sometimes students ask that question related to, what part of the country or what part of the world they're coming from. I think that would be my overall kind of doubling down on your message, which is one part of your identity is not going to dictate your future, specifically at USC. And this idea of students being from all different backgrounds and different identities coming together, still working hard, but finding different niches in different ways, different parts of campus is somewhat like the USC lifestyle. Would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely. Like my whole deal is you can do whatever you want to do. You can get out whatever you want to get out, and you should do that. You shouldn't come into college expecting that is going to be like all the movies you've seen or whatever, Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I think like whatever you do, as long as you're doing things that you enjoy and things that you want to do, you're going to get out what you need. So
that's awesome. Well, I thought it was, I'm sorry, Audrey, go ahead.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. It's definitely a situation with what you get out is what you, or what you put in is what you get out. And I also just wanted to note that a couple weeks ago, we hosted a podcast about the organization QuEST, Queers in Engineering, Science, and Technology. So if you're just interested in learning more about that community within Viterbi and what their organization does, it's kind of like academic, social, and professional support. It's a really holistic organization for that community at USC. It was a really great episode, so I encourage you to check that one out as well.
I also loved how this was held on National Coming Out Day. I think it was an important part of the national dialogue related to students, identity and not only their gender, but kind of where they're going in life. And everyone is at a different place on that spectrum and at different levels of comfort and different levels of acceptance, whether that's in their home or in their towns. And I hope that if you're listening to this podcast, whether you are listening to it in a kind of a passive way or whether you're incredibly active and out and comfortable, this is for everybody. Don't feel pressure to go in any particular direction. Everybody has their own stage at which they go through this process, and know that, at least as far as USC concerned, is we're here and welcoming to everyone. And I think that that's the most important element. And I really applaud you, Derek, for hosting this episode and sharing your experiences and also making sure and moderating that chat from all of our other students that are here. It is just a fantastic element, and I can't wait to shout this episode from the rooftops to get more people to listen.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I had a great time, and I'm really glad. I hope, at least based on the questions that we got and some comments, a lot of people enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. So
great. Thanks so much. Well, I don't think I have anything else. Are we good?
Yeah, I think so. Thanks, everyone.
All right.